All right, Coach, when you are ready, go ahead with the opening statement and we'll get rolling.
Okay. Obviously we had all 14 of our players that were draft eligible sign with teams. 9 of them were drafted, obviously, and 5 were free agents. So excited with, certainly what took place. Happy for all of these guys. This has been a dream of theirs, and to see it fulfilled here over the last few days is has been exciting to watch. As we talk about Notre Dame now, fourth in all-time active players right now with 57, all-time history with 520. So we've made a significant impact in terms of the draft, and that's the full cycle. We recruit out of high school, we develop our football players here, we win football games, and we give them a chance if that's what they want to do to go on to the NFL. So completing the circle this past weekend. Pretty excited for all these guys.
All right, we're going to head to Lynn Clark for the first question.
Brian, from an outcomes assessment, can you go into a little bit of a depth in terms of how this draft can be implemented into the recruiting process and player development?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at our situation in particular with 9 players being drafted again, it's so much more about preparing them. Not only, the total preparation is not just in the physical, it's certainly in the mental preparation as well. These guys had to go through a pandemic and play during a very difficult time. So they're evaluated in all phases. So when we're recruiting to Notre Dame, we've got to have somebody that can handle all phases of student life here. It's not just, where they put a football helmet on and run out of the tunnel and play. They've got to handle all those things. And obviously we've done a really good job of, when they leave here, they're able to handle the day-to-day, and they have proven that. That's why there's so many teams that are trusting these picks as being Notre Dame players that are fully developed.
All right, we're going to go to Nate Ulrich next. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Coach, what are the Browns getting in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah?
A playmaker. We talk so much about playmakers on offense, but Joe is going to get a guy that Joe Woods is going to get a guy on defense that he can really put into a number of different situations, whether it's a linebacker situation, a nickel situation, safety. I think he's a guy that gives them so much flexibility with him on the field. And look, at the end of the day, he finds the football. To me, this game, we can make it as complicated as we want, but some have a knack of getting to the football, and Jeremiah is the guy that closes, gets the football, and when he gets there, he's pretty disruptive.
All right, next question's from Pete Sampson.
Brandon, I just want to get your thoughts on Ian Book going to the Saints in the 4th, and then also, big picture with the draft. There are a lot of reasons for the success, and you mentioned some of them. But I wanted to drill down a little bit more on Matt Balis and the strength program, where not only are you getting a lot of picks now, it's 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Maybe guys with better draft position. How much just sort of the development of the strength program, and now that Matt Balis has been here for a few years, how does that factor into the success?
Yeah, starting with Ian Book, he possesses so many of the other intangibles at the position. Not only, if you just throw on the film and see that he spins it well, obviously the accuracy, the ability to escape and make plays outside the pocket. Look, he's been through it, right? He's he's in one of the most recognizable quarterback positions in the entire country, and he's seen the ups and downs and persevered as being the all-time winningest quarterback. So he brings so many intangibles that nobody really can compete with. And then he can play the position. New Orleans, obviously a great fit. They've already been with a quarterback that is 6 foot and recognizes that you don't throw over offensive linemen, you throw, or defensive linemen, you throw around them. And so Ian will do quite well there. This is total development again, and a lot of the credit goes to the process that we're in, Pete. I mean, it's, we can pick out one of it, but if we didn't have the others, we wouldn't be where we are. And it starts with the young men that are committed. Look, Liam, Aaron, Jeremiah, Tommy, Robert, all these guys were incredibly committed to a process. So you got to recruit guys that have that fire and that desire and that want to, and that's so important. Whether they're a 5-star or a 2-star, if they don't have that fire inside, Matt Bayless is not going to change it. And now add a great strength program with a great staff and an organization within that we really believe in. Now you can start to add the coaching, and you can start to add, the mental performance teaching. You can add these other pieces in nutrition. But it really starts with the young man and finding the kid that loves to play this game, is committed to the end process and being the best version of himself.
All right, next question is going to come from Eric Hansen.
Good morning, Brian. I got a couple for you.
Okay.
The first one is, you have really put this initiative in of getting guys like Tommy Tremble to come back and get their degree when they've left after 3 years. And it's been pretty successful. I would ask you to maybe talk about how you think that program's going. And did you have anything to do with Jerome Bettis being back in online classes this semester? My second question kind of dovetails into recruiting. Florida was the #2 state in producing draft picks. At one point, you kind of got away from that. And now it seems like you're kind of surging back into Florida with your recruiting. And I wondered what's different now with that, and how are you making that more successful?
Yeah. Beth Rex, our director of football administration, has been the lead on, getting our former student athletes that haven't had the opportunity to get back to campus to get their degree. She's been the impetus behind this. And yes, she's 100% working with Jerome Bettis and was the one that really got Jerome back here. But it's been Jerome, it's been Stephon Tuitt. It's been all of the players that we felt like it was our responsibility to bridge that gap and make sure that we could provide them, the resources necessary to make those calls, to bring the NFLPA in, to help with scholarship and things of that nature. In Jerome's situation, he was past the deadline, and we were still able to do things in terms of getting his classes taken care of. So a lot of that is Beth Rex, and she's done an incredible job with it. As it relates to the recruiting from state to state, what we did is we didn't cross Florida off the list, but we opened up the border, if you will, to getting into Georgia. And so we felt like we needed to expand our profile schools. And when I say our profile schools, ones that have academic institutions that have the core classes necessary for them to succeed here at Notre Dame. And we found that there was many more in Georgia that we needed to get to. So it wasn't canceling Florida as much as opening up and getting into Georgia, and not just being focused on Florida as a primary state.
All right, next question is going to come from Andrew Mintock.
Looking back at the 2016 recruiting class, you had now 4 defensive ends who were all drafted, and then we're also all captains. Can you talk a little bit about getting that kind of leadership and talent out of one class at the defensive end position?
Yeah, again, I think it speaks to the original question that I had from I think it was from Pete, relative to, who's responsible for this. It starts with the young men that we recruit to Notre Dame, and knowing that we're looking for somebody that is much more than just about football, that they have leadership skills, that they can overcome, the the academics that are extremely difficult here, and it's going to shape them into being the best versions of themselves. So, where people sometimes, clench their teeth and go, well, why are they taking this guy? We have so many other boxes that we're looking at and need to check as we recruit. And it's not just about the star box. Stars are important. I get that. And they're evaluated fairly, and a lot of eyes are on them. And most of the time those are pretty accurate, but we have to consider other criteria in our development process as well.
All right, up next we have Adam Rittenberg.
Yeah, hi, Brian. I just curious, as you look at the draft as a whole, players that you had drafted or even that you faced, were there any surprises, great values, sleepers, those type of things as you kind of look at the entire picture?
I think when you go across the board, some of the guys that, influenced, us, more than anything else would probably be, some of the receivers at Clemson. I think one of them that was taken, a little bit later in the draft, I thought that was a great value pick. So I think a couple of guys at Clemson kind of stood out to me in that perspective. I think you get any one of those running backs at North Carolina when they did, great value as well. So those were kind of the guys that stood out to me that were picked a little bit later. Kind of like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah too. He was picked a little bit later and becomes a great value. So I think there were some guys in the ACC picked a little bit later that will be great value.
All right, up next we have Patrick Ingle.
Morning, Brian. You've talked about in the past how when you look at Jeremiah's NFL fit, it's a team that makes it work is one that has a specific plan for him. When you look at the Browns defense and then just look at Jeremiah as a whole, is there kind of a role in there that you see, or just kind of what do you think about that fit overall as far as how you think they might use him?
I got to be honest with you. I haven't looked at Cleveland in detail enough to give you a clear answer on the question. It's a fair question, but I think it's better for, I know their defensive coordinator very well. He coached under me. I know what he's looking for. I mean, I know what everybody's looking for. They want guys that can make plays and not have to come off the field. And so Jeremiah's a guy that can play on all downs. And man, does that give you great flexibility? He's going to be a great special teams player. He just enhances, what you do. I think specifically, I don't watch the defense enough to be able to give you a great example of that.
All right, now we'll go to Tyler James.
Brian, certainly the recruiting success and NFL draft success seems to be repeating itself with offensive linemen and tight ends. You haven't necessarily had that with quarterbacks at Notre Dame during your tenure. Does that add to the significance of Ian Book being drafted in the 4th round? And does that maybe speak to and give examples to recruits of what Tommy Rees can do as a quarterbacks coach for those guys?
I'm not sure how to answer the question. I think we've had success with quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know what success means other than, my job is to win football games and develop our players to the best of their ability. Whether that means that they become great NFL players, we're going to prepare them the best we can. And sometimes it's out of our control what happens at that next level. They got to get in the right place, the right fit, things of that nature. I understand what you're referring to relative to the offensive linemen and tight ends, because we certainly have more of those. But, we've had a receiver, I think, drafted every year other than maybe 2017 year. I think we've had a receiver drafted every year too. So quarterback's a little bit more difficult, right? I mean, its beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some people would have never thought Ian Book was going to get picked in the 4th round. Now he's got a chance to compete for a starting position. So, that's the one that's a little bit of an outlier. And we have Tommy Rees here, who's played the position. I have great trust in his ability to develop our quarterbacks. And, we've done a pretty good job of developing a quarterback that can help us win games and we expect to do the same moving forward.
We're going to go back to Nate York with the Akron Beacon Journal.
Hey, Coach, 2 questions about character traits as it relates to Jeremiah. One, what did you learn about him when, he had the broken foot, coming off the red shirt, had to work through that to become the player he did become for you? And then 2, you talk about him being a great value pick. I had a chance to talk to him on Zoom after he got picked, and he had an amazing answer about how he was processing the whole situation of falling out of the first round. I'm just wondering if you've talked to him about it and what you think it is about him that'll make him kind of use that situation the best possible.
Jeremiah is a very bright young man, and he has a perspective that is, I think, fit for all situations. He never becomes too emotional. You're never going to see him too high or too low. So when he did have the injury, he did not fall off the map. In other words, he stayed engaged with the football team. He stayed engaged what we were doing on a day-to-day basis. And, that's just, I think, allows somebody to make the transition back and have success. If you lose that contact, when you're going through an injury, it makes it a lot more difficult to feel comfortable with the group, the locker room, the relationships. And Jeremiah never lost that. And I think that's just a lot to his maturity. He's a mature, he's a man, and he's going to be able to handle himself in the locker room in Cleveland, and he's going to be respected because of his maturity. Certainly they'll respect him when he's making plays on the field, but I think off the field, he's going to carry a lot of respect in the community.
All right, now we have a question from Tim Priester.
Brian, this may overlap the question from Patrick with regard to Jeremiah's fit within the scheme with the Browns. But in your conversations, you had mentioned earlier that in your conversations that you had with general managers and coaches, are there any scheme fits that they indicated would be a good fit for any of the guys that you got drafted, or even the ones that were free agents?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of conversations that we've had, and I think, Tim, one thing stood out to me was that, when they didn't have the contact as much this year that they had with players in the past, they really had to look inwardly, internally, and I think you saw that in some of the, the video where draft rooms were really excited about the picks that they made, because they were going on their own intelligence, their own information, and had to make decisions that were a lot more difficult than in years past about personnel. And so the due diligence changed a little bit. There were a lot more questions asked about all of the guys from Notre Dame, from Liam Eichenberg. Is he a left tackle or a right tackle? To Ade, in terms of, does he have the kind of motor that he shows all the time? Does he show that, off the field as well? So we got so many variety of questions, but I think the guy's skill set that fits particularly for me would be probably Tommy Tremble is in a great position with Matt Rule. Matt's a college coach that had college experience, understands player development, knows specifically what he's getting in Tommy as a younger player that he's got to bring along. And I just think that that's a great landing place for Tommy. And I think that's going to be a really good situation for them in the next couple of years.
All right, we'll do a final call for questions. And Coach, I think that's it. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.